Hi, I'm Author Assist, proud sponsor of the 3-Act Structure Show on the GoIndieNow platform. Author Assist offers affordable services and one-on-one training to independent authors. I help them from brainstorming an idea to publishing and the promotion and marketing of the book. I have 2 podcasts, Narrations by KK and Behind the Pen. I'm the host of the radio show Author Assist on the Artist First Radio Network, and I'm also a multi-award-winning filmmaker. Love creating book trailers. I'm also a graphic designer and offer at least another 20 services that will help authors navigate and stand out. If you're a new author and you're holding the copy of your book in your hands, thinking, now what? That's when you need Author Assist. Contact me for a service sheet at KKantas authораssist@gmail.com.
When we deconstruct the elements of story and its structure, whether you acknowledge 3 acts or not, our focus shifts to one aspect that connects us all: the characters. Since the dawn of storytelling itself, there has always been one side's hero and one side's villain. Now, where you may fall in who you support or relate to might shift, but it's always there. However, these days, it's even more layered and complicated. When we have been able to nuance and finite roles and involvement, gray the black and white. It's that examination we will be doing this season. And we'll be doing it in 3-act structure.
They're that helping hand when you need to get over that hump. They have your ear. They go on the run with you. They're your sounding board, your conscience. They may be the only one that you even fully trust. They are the Confidant.
Hi, I'm Tim Niederreiter. I'm the host of Alive After Reading. I have a few books out there, epic fantasies, big science fictions.
KKantas here. I am a prolific author of 14 books. I write in all fiction genres, especially fantasy and thriller, and I make up some of my own as I go along. I'm also an award-winning filmmaker, podcaster, YouTuber, booktuber, and the list goes on, so I won't waste your time. But hi.
Hey guys, I'm Alexander Gideon. As you know, if you've ever watched any show with me, my writing can best be summed up by the phrase, and many people died. My most recent release is Persistence, a collection. It's 6 short stories of mine, kind of ranging all flavors of fantasy. My first book, Web of Crimson, came out 2 years ago. If you haven't read it, why not? Second book is plugging along on that, guys. So that should be out soon.
Hi, I'm Adam Gaffin, and I've written 7 books in science fiction in my Cassidyverse. The latest one is Into the Black, and it's a collection of stories.
Hey everybody, my name is Vanessa Junta. I am an author. This is the first book of the Soul Cavern series. It's called Javaja. I tend to write urban fantasy with horrific elements, and my short work is often more horror leaning. I'm also a freelance fiction editor, and I recently signed a 7-book deal with Falstaff Books. So
Nice.
This is actually kind of a cool character arc, because it is, of all the ones I've done so far, it's probably the most versatile. Because it can be, it could be any one of the character arcs we've already done. It could also be just some random character that just is there for the reason of being the confidant, or just being, and you don't know why they're there, and then all of a sudden they say something really smart like Silent Bob, right? And all of a sudden that's like the most wise thing you've ever heard. But for all of you, I'm kind of curious how you build the confidant into your stories. Is there a rhyme or reason to it, or is it that you discover it just like the audience discovers it?
I haven't particularly used a single character as the confidant because a lot of it is based on the relationships between the characters. I mean, I try to make my characters as realistic as possible, as based on real people as possible so that the reader can identify with them. And you think about what you do, talking and confiding in people. Like you just said, Joe, it could be virtually anybody, but the people you talk to are based on your relationship with them at the time that you need somebody to talk to. So as you go through, maybe in this part of the book, this character over here is the right one for them to talk to, but not in this part of the book. And it's some totally other character. So it bounces around based on need. And yeah, I'm just as surprised to find out who that is as hopefully the reader.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. I was going to talk about how you build your relationships among your characters. And I absolutely agree with everything Adam just said, because even like he said, in life, there's certain parts of your life you feel comfortable confiding in X person, but maybe other parts of your life you do not feel comfortable. And also, especially if you're writing in a genre like mine, like urban fantasy, if magic or supernatural beings are secrets, that there are only particular people that can, things can be discussed with. And also shared experiences. If somebody's in a war zone, nobody's going to understand what they went through except other people who have gone through a similar experience. So I think confidant can be both a person and it can be a trait. So it can be a trait of different people, or it can be a specific person.
Nice distinction. I like that.
Yeah.
Me too. That's really cool.
All that being said, I mean, I do tend to have a specific position kind of in the relationship between a bunch of characters that is to the protagonist is kind of not. I never really thought of it as a confidant in particular, but I kind of think of it as the best friend position or the reflection position, where there's this person that they're maybe, if they're going on a journey, usually they're going on the journey with them in some way or other, and they're generally not the love interest. Usually they're in this position where they are the third most important character in the book, or second most in some cases. And because the person my main character is going to talk to the most has a good chance of becoming a confidant.
I don't go out and write a confidant in the book. It's when the book is finished, I can see who plays that role. My Mafia Broken Chains, there isn't a confidant in that book. The main character, she doesn't have anyone she can whisper her secrets to. It's in the fantasy Illusional Reality. Thaya's confidant is actually her maiden. She comes really close with her. They're about the same age, and they have their giggles, and they talk about men and stuff like that. And unfortunately, she drinks poison wine that was supposed to have been for Thaya. She didn't know it was poisoned, but she would have drank it anyway if she had known. So I kill her off. And then Thaya hasn't got a confidant after that. So that's really sad. But in book 2, she's with a group of merry men, shall we say, and they're off on a quest, and they see things, and her secrets, her dark secrets come out, and they see things that they have to keep to themselves for the rest of their lives, basically. And so many of them around her are her confidant because they have to keep her secret hidden, and they do. So she's able to be open with them, and they have to swear an oath that they're going to be the confidant and not spread her dark secret around.
I have one in the Books of the Law series that's definitely pretty much solely confidant, and that's the Julian Baker character. He kind of goes through all the books, and he's that person that he's the one that knows the most about Crowley's life and is someone that he's comfortable with. There's a character named Vex in the series that is it's like voice inside of Crowley's head. And it's very much the confidant. It's pretty much what his entire role is that he's someone that he can always talk to. He's in his head. He knows his thoughts. He's got all of this. There's nothing he can really hide. So Vex is someone he can always talk to. And in book 3, I've got a character, actually turned Dorian Gray, the Dorian Gray, into kind of a confidant character for Elaine Simpson. And there's kind of this like back and forth because they have a history with them. But again, it's one of those where it's like they know the parts of the character that they're not comfortable with most people knowing.
Oh, you like to play in the most fucked up sandboxes. Dorian Gray, Aleister Crowley.
The voice in the head, though. The voice in the head, that's an interesting one to me in particular. The character that's kind of in your mind, or that you have a mental connection with. That in genre fiction, that's a really big deal, and it's something that, at least in my stories, there's often characters like that. I mean, in Demon Scroll, there was, I mean, even though this character doesn't really fulfill the role of a confidant, each wizard has basically a demon that they talk to that is part of them, basically.
I do kind of want to define the confidant then. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of the confidant. What are some of the things that you specifically need from your confidant to have a confidant role?
The confidant has to keep the secrets. They are being told stuff that is very personal to the other character. And the other character needs to trust them. They need to know that whatever they tell them is going to stay with them. And so, yeah, trust is a really big thing with a confidant.
Which makes the betrayal, all the more shocking when it comes.
Yeah, especially if it's by them.
No, that's what I mean.
Plot twist.
The confidant returns, or the one that pretends to be the confidant and really isn't. They have their own agenda. For mine, a lot of it is, it kind of gives the external, seeing into the main character's head, seeing what they're thinking, and giving them kind of the devil's advocate to play their ideas against as well.
I think acceptance is really important for a good, proper confidant. Like in book 3 of the Books of the Law, like as I said, you've got Dorian Gray kind of being the confidant for Elaine. And the book, at the beginning of the book, there's this really horrible kind of torture scene that Elaine is doing the torturing. I won't spoil who it is because that's the kind of the big thing of it. But Dorian walks in after she has done this and has killed this person, and he's just like, well, that's a mess we've got here. And just kind of sits down, next to her and is like, all right, so how are we going to deal with this? That kind of acceptance and, willingness to help and be like, I know this is you. I know this about you and who and what you are, and I'm okay with it.
I like that. Accepting who they are, yeah.
Even if it's not good.
Yeah. And with that, there's kind of the lack of leverage. In that example you just gave, it's not like he's going to say, well, you're going to do what I want now, or I'm going to tell somebody about this. No, he's like, he's going to help out.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's an important factor, I think, with the confidant, is that they're basically helpful, or until they, and potentially that role gets reversed. But in that position, they're essentially a friend.
There's 2 different ways I look at confidants. One is the way we've been talking about, and that is the way we as human beings in real life look at confidants. People we can trust until we can't. People that maybe we can bounce our ideas off of. They can keep our secrets, that kind of thing. But I also view confidant as a tool for the author, because the confidant position also allows the author to get new information to the protagonist that the protagonist might not have. Instead of having this, well, as you know, Jim, kind of thing, if something needs to be explained, it can be explained to the confidant, right? So it's also, so for me, when I think about whether a character fulfills the role of confidant, and looking at both of those things.
Do you look at how it could layer your character to, like show an emotion that the character hasn't had before?
Sure, because honestly, nobody can hurt you as much as somebody,
Who
that
knows your
hurts you.
secrets?
Yeah, I mean, even like just emotionally hurt, like not even just like, oh, you killed that person, now I'm going to tell somebody. No one can hurt you as much as someone you bring into your inner landscape. So yeah, absolutely. You can leverage the confidant to show different aspects of the protagonist.
And in turn, bring the reader in, because the reader's going to get closer to the protagonist because
it brings out the emotions. Brings out the emotions more. They can when they're getting deep in a talk with the confidant. The reader can learn new things, and like you said, it shows another layer of the character by being so emotional and being so open when they chat with their bestie.
And it also gives you an idea of like who the protagonist would choose as a confidant. Tells you a little bit about the protagonist. So like I think that Alexander's example is like perfect to illustrate that.
True. Yeah. You don't want to get dirty with somebody who's not been dirty before, right? So
depends on how dirty you want to be.
All right, so along those lines, let's unbear our souls here a little bit. Let me be your confidant right now.
You and the
and the audience.
And the audience.
Everybody watching. And please, everybody comment on this moment. Let's just bring it all out. But no, tell me when you're writing a scene with a confidant where you're revealing something very intimate about the character, is that a different exercise for you? Is that a different thing for you in writing? Do you feel like, are you like salivating at that moment? Are you saying, oh, I finally get to say this, I finally get to tell people? And how do you view taking that moment into the confidant's purview?
It's not something I get worked up about. Ooh, I get to reveal this, or it's another part of the story. It's another link in the chain, building the whole thing. Without it, it's not as strong. Without it, it doesn't work as well. But I'm not getting, as I'm writing it, I'm certainly not getting worked up about it. Now, when I go back and read it, if I get some kind of an emotional jolt from it one way or another, then I know I've written it well.
You've done your job.
But as I'm writing it, it's like, okay, I'm writing 100,000 words, and this is 400 of them. There you go, 400 more out of the way. Moving on.
In Illusional Reality with Thaya and Kazar, they're sitting down on the bed and they're chatting, and Thaya's refused to marry the Dark Warlord as part of a peace treaty for these two lands, and he's called upon her to go and visit, and she turned around and said no. Well, Kazar's actually spoken out, and she's such a shy person, and she says, pardon me, my lady, but do you think it's wise not taking the hand that Kovan is offering? And so Thaya's like, oh, I never really thought about this, so she says, tell me your opinion, I will listen to it. And this is different for Kazar because no one's ever treated her like that before. And she gets to give her opinion for the first time ever. And Thaya gets to hear somebody else's opinion of this situation. And so bringing those two together allows them both to open up in different ways to make a really strong connection with one another.
I've actually been kind of thinking about this a lot because I don't have a ton of these scenes. Most of the time, the main character we're tight in their head, but they don't tell that many deep thoughts. But like, at least in my action stories and stuff, there's a lot of just stuff's happening. We're running through it. And the character will have internal thoughts, but they will rarely express this to other people. Their really vulnerable side that is actually really important to the story. And I think that's probably the most important element there, is that they can be vulnerable when otherwise they have to appear tough. This is a moment where they can let down their guard. And I think that's really important. In Orphan Mage, the main character, he's talking to this creature that he created that's kind of a big crawling tree. Like, it's a tree that crawls around of its roots. And that's the closest thing he gets to like a real, like, oh, I'm vulnerable scene. Because normally he's so cocky and overconfident. That's his whole character. He doesn't have a lot of room to be vulnerable with other people.
The things that I think are the most important in reveals with the Confidant are not really necessarily backstory or furthering plot. It's allowing the characters to be their authentic selves. Like, all the way through the first 2 books, Elaine is this smarmy, sarcastic, super strong, like willing to dive head in kind of character. And then I pulled it up because there was a moment I was thinking about, and just like there's a little bit of dialogue from this back and forth that her and Dorian have, and it's, only then did I feel something. Fear. I'm so scared, Dorian. I can't face him again. And it's just not something she would have said to anybody else. But just that, I'm so scared. That she lets herself there. And like, those are the reveals. And those are the things that I'm always super happy to get to kind of show this character's human. This character has feelings like everyone else. This character can be afraid, can be ashamed, can be guilty, even if we've never seen them do that. But with this person, they're letting themselves be that way. And that's the reveals that I'm like excited to get to when I'm having those interactions with the Confidant.
And that's a great point, Alexander.
Nicely brought it right back to what Vanessa and I said right at the beginning, which is, it's based on circumstances. It's based, she wouldn't have said that to anybody else. She wouldn't have said it to him, except he was at the right place at the right time to fulfill the role that she needed for him at that moment. So, well done you, full circle.
But also, it is circumstantial, but it had to be him. Like, if it had been Alistair in that moment, she would have shut down. Like, this is the thing that I've done, and yes, it had to be done. That would have been the way it is. But because it was Dorian, because he has all of this knowledge, because of who he is to her, that's why she could in that moment.
So in Javaja, this speaks to sort of what we were talking about relationships among people. So in the first book, she gets very close to someone she was held captive, and he was like the person who was actually taking care of her, not the people who captured her. And they end up sort of escaping together or whatever. And so she gets very close to him, and he knows a secret about her father. And when in the second book, the main character of the second book is her best friend. But obviously she is also in the story because it's kind of a continuation and ongoing thing, a series arc. So her best friend is there, and she's learned something about her best friend that she didn't know that is off-putting. And so that kind of creates a little bit of a barrier between them, so she doesn't tell her best friend the secret about her father until I think toward the end of the second book. It might even be the third book. I'm not sure. So she was keeping secrets from the person, but everything else, because, I don't know if any of y'all have women in your family and knew them as girls, but like women tend to, like, often when we create a real friendship with another woman, it's very tight, right? And so they grew up together, these two girls, and they were best friends from the time they were in like second grade. And so they were super close. So everything else kind of stayed the same. And they felt like they could confide in each other about those things, but they each kept a little secrets until, of course it all blew up, right? It was interesting, and I didn't really realize this at the time because I wasn't specifically writing confidants. I was writing characters with relationships. And so in thinking back on it, Will, the male character in the first book, he essentially kind of became her confidant after they got away.
There's this moment in Almost Famous, and he says, "I'm telling secrets to the one guy I'm not supposed to tell secrets to," right? And so, and I feel like this character arc is a trap in a lot of ways for writers, maybe because you could use it for the red herring, you could use it for the twist, as we've already discussed. And so, are you thinking about, is this too tropey? Have I gone the route of, or is that why the Confidant works, is because it has that?
The tropes exist because they work.
Or they worked at some point.
Right. Or they work in some circumstances.
Right.
Right. They're a tool.
And if you end up in one of those circumstances, whether you intended to get there or not, whether you're like, oh no, I'm not writing this trope, and then you ended up, oh wait a second, I just did. Look, if it's good writing, if it's a good book and a good story, then you don't screw with it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fix it for the sake of, oh, I said I wasn't going to use this trope. Who did you tell it to? Well, I told it to myself. I thought I wasn't going to matter.
It doesn't even matter if you told it to other people. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, just if it's good, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I think, when it's a character role like this one, like the Confidant, this position is almost not a trope because it's too broad of a subject matter, I think, in some sense. To be like, it's not like a supervillain in a comic book movie or a serial killer or a chosen one. Yeah, it's actually less tropey than those things because that character, any of those characters could be a confidant too.
Yeah.
For example, it's a position that the character finds himself in or is placed in by the story, rather than a position that the character just inherently occupies.
I read a book that is coming out soon, or just came out, I don't know. It's called Two Gun Witch by Bishop O'Connell. It's very good. And in it, the main character, who is the last of her elven tribe, she speaks to her sisters and her mother. And she does it, and it's all her, like it's in her head, but she shares her fears and her angers and everything like that with her mother and her sisters. And her mother speaks to her. And, I guess maybe in a future book, we may find out it really was. But in this book, it just seems like it's her talking, it's her subconscious or her better angels or whatever, taking on the role of her mother. So the Confidant doesn't even always have to be an actual character.
I get you. You just reminded me of something. I've been reading a lot of these paranormal wolves and alpha stories. And so when they're a human, until they're a certain age, they don't hear their wolf. And when they pass that age, then the wolf starts talking to them. And they can feel them and they can communicate with their wolf, and the wolf communicates with them. And so it's not human, it's an animal, and it's still a confidant. And it just goes to show how many ways we can use that character.
The nature of a character's confidants, whatever, should tell you a lot about that character as well, and should match that character. Like, you have a character that's very closed off, very very secretive, keeps things close to the chest. They shouldn't have 7, 8, 9 people that they tell stuff to, because it's going against the character. But it can show how healthy a character is. Like, Elaine talks to Dorian, and that's pretty much it, and that's not healthy, And like any normal relationship, if you're getting all of your emotional needs from one person, that's not a good thing.
Vanessa,
I already talked. Didn't I already talk?
I want to hear more. More Leslie.
So I don't know if that answers any question you asked, but I thought I'd talk because you guys told me I should talk.
Fair enough. No, fair enough.